You have a,
It's
do
okay.
you have a icon that says start video?
Up on
Jenny?
top here. Yeah.
Click that
No,
and
it
see
says, all right.
if it's got your
Neither
name.
one, start or stop, it's not working. So as long as you can hear me, that's okay.
Yeah, so we've got 2, 4, 6, 8. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's all there is. So we'll call the meeting to order. The Community Preservation Committee for the 14th of March, Pi Day, 2022. And we're starting off with Don Piot. Thank you for hanging in there, Don. Don, as you all know, is the financial officer here in town, and he does all the numbers and keeps us honest. And he's going to go over the CPC funds that are available.
Russ,
I
do you
don't
want to
know-
do a roll? Do you want to do a roll call for the record?
Should we? Okay.
Well, I know in conservation we normally begin with a,
Yes.
a roll call
Oh,
for the
well,
record.
we'll start then. Jean,
Here,
Mary Ann.
Mary Ann Weatherall, present.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Ginny,
Here,
state your name too. What the heck? Okay. Eric
Eric Eisenhower, present.
and Susie Wadsworth
Suzanne Wadsworth present.
and Michael.
Michael Dickey here.
Okay, Russell Benetti here. All right. Don's going to go over the balances on CPC funds. They sorry to get them out to you so late this year, but they do reflect the money that we're getting this year between the state match and the town contribution, which probably is about what it's going to be for a while. The state seems to be trying to stick with the percentage match that they're doing now. It's something that they can't put as a permanent because they can't impose a tax on future legislation, but from the sounds of it, it's going to be like that for a while. But anyway, keeping Don from his daughter and his family there. So Don, take it away, buddy.
All right, good evening. Thanks for having me. I figured I'd kind of start just briefly. I know I sent some reports out probably last week. I just wanted to share my screen just for a minute to show you the different reports, and then see if you guys have any questions about these reports. The first one, the first one I'm going to share is the year-to-date expenditure report, which is basically where we're at any given point in time. I can run this report every week or once a month or once a quarter. And basically this report has all of the CPC approved projects that have been approved by town meeting. So let me increase this a little bit. So you'll see again in the format, I started to just have it formatted almost by town meeting, just the way they're coded. So a lot of them, like for instance, you'll see here about 2.3 million from May 2021 annual town meeting. So permanent conservation restriction, affordable housing trust contribution, housing authority preservation work, and then it shows what we've spent. So the affordable housing trust, you'll see $500,000. We transfer that essentially right away. And then again, as you go through the report, you'll see the balances that were carried over from the prior year, or the new balances that were approved at a town meeting, and the year-to-date expenditure and available balance. And this is, again, this report is a couple-page report that will have every open CPC project in the available balance. And so really, again, this is, to me, a management tool. I use this to, like I said, track every open project. I use this to kind of work with Russ towards the end of every budget cycle, determine if there's any projects that need to be renewed based on time restraints. And yeah, so I wanted to show this as again, what I use is tracking individual projects approved by town meeting. And I do share this probably a few times a year. And I wanted to see if there are any questions about this report in general. Hearing or seeing no, I'm just gonna move on here. I think this would be a quick meeting.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
This is Marianne Weatherall. Is that a report that you can share with the group? Right, I have the CPC fund balances and prepared on 3/14. And maybe I don't have the full document, but.
Oh, this would have been sent, I think a week ago. Russ, did you send these out after I sent them to you? You're muted.
Oh, Russ, you're still muted.
You're muted, Russ.
Still on mute.
There we go. It wasn't unmuting. My wife would love me to have a mute button, I'll tell you that. But yeah, I send those out once Don sends them to me. And actually, these may have gone out twice. I haven't been using it with the exception of Gene. And I think you're the only one, Gene, that I use town email addresses on.
Russ, I didn't get that.
You should have. Here, let me look at my email.
If you haven't sent it, or if you have sent it, could you just resend it maybe later, just so I could have it in the file as a good reference?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because Don, I saw on your chart, like there was a line item that's, I think there's only 3,000 left on one project. It was up near the top, and it's a good tracker.
Yeah, $3,000 most likely.
Near the top it was. Sorry, I don't see your screen now. So.
Yeah, I can share it again if you like.
Just to make sure I'm reading it correctly and understand.
Yeah, there was
great track.
Yeah, and again, this comes right out of our accounting system, so this is an easy report to run. But yeah, there's $3,000 down at the bottom here. Wheelchair, the water wheelchair that was approved at the December special town meeting.
Right.
No.
Anyway.
Yeah, again, this is, like I said, I apologize. I thought these were sent out last week when we had talked about them, but when I sent them to Russ, so I apologize for that.
But thank you for showing it to us. Thanks.
I think those were with the packet that Russ sent out, I want to say, in all the attachments on March 10th, if you check your email at 9:35 p.m. If you look at the second attachment, I think it went to everyone, maybe.
You're absolutely right. It's at the bottom. Thank you.
Sure.
I see it.
All right, so excuse me.
Thank you.
The next document that we usually prepare is this Community Preservation Act. This is a huge spreadsheet that kind of goes back to probably 2014, but for purposes of trying to send an update just a few years ends up making a little more sense because it's a busy spreadsheet. But this just shows our annual estimate for, again, if you're looking at fiscal 22, this is what we had at revenue estimates going at the town meeting last year. Again, take a look at it at your leisure. I thought you guys had some time to review this, so this is pretty busy, but it basically documents and carries over prior year balances, the new allocation, town meeting appropriations. So, you know, for instance, if we're looking here at the open space, we had 125,000 from the prior year carried over. New appropriation or set asides for the 10% was 68. And then we approved the high school track and the extension of the Sandy Beach bathhouse, which ends up showing in that specific allocation a zero balance as of now. And that's usually how these things have been working out, is we set aside the money, but we also appropriate essentially the full amount of set aside every year. So what you'll see is down the bottom in the unallocated or unreserved section is where the bulk of the money lives. And so before we go into our FY23 assumptions and estimates, you have about 1.7 million available to spend. And again, this is a multi-year, so you'll see all of these appropriations from 20, 21, and 22. I'm having trouble seeing if anybody had a question.
So Don, I do have a question, and I'm sorry to jump in front of anyone if
No, go right ahead, Gene.
it actually relates to the prior report, if you don't mind flashing that up on the screen, where I
Sure.
think probably the most detail is.
Yep.
So it strikes me that we have a lot of a pretty large available balance for projects that funds have already been appropriated, but the funds haven't been drawn down. Looking at this 1.7 million that's hanging out there that's appropriated, do you know of all of these projects, including the ones on the second page, particularly the big ones? So for example, the track, Milliken baseball shed at the bottom, swim center, these large appropriated funds that haven't been spent yet.
Yeah.
Are these projects where they actually expect to draw them down, or are they having issues with the project cost in line of supply chain issues?
So from my understanding, Swim Center is, they're in the middle of their project. We spent about, or reimbursed about $55,000 this year. They're working on their filter upgrade, a number of things. I forget the exact scope of that project. And just so you know, so my role in this essentially is annually I help prepare the estimates for the next year's revenues, the set-asides, and managing the general ledger, the accounts that are approved. I take it because we're a small community, we don't have a separate staff member that supports CPC. The invoices come through me. Russ will send them through, or the organization will send them through CC and Russ for notification, and then I'll make sure that they're paid or reimbursed to the entity timely. But for actual updates, that's not part of my role of necessarily keeping up with the status of each project. That would be more for those groups to come back to you folks and provide updates on where they're at with their projects. So I don't know if that answers your question, Gene, but I can tell you these other items, in addition to the swim center, these were just issued last May. And even though we're closing in on a year, some of these just take time. The Milliken Field Shed, that has been an issue before I came here. I remember that being an interview question about how we would go ahead and actually procure something like this, since we've been having the issue. So I know this is in process. I know the town's been working hard to try to get either builders or plans. We've come up with plans, but then the builder and the quotes don't seem to be lining up with the available funds. So I know there's been a lot of bites at that apple, and we haven't given up. I know the town hasn't given up on that, but those funds will stay outstanding or open until a determination is made otherwise. And again, I think you can see that money was initially approved back in the 2016 town meeting. So that has been extended at least once through the town meeting process. And it's just, I wish I had a better update for you. Than we're still trying to work on that. And then the other items here, the permanent conservation restriction, I don't quite know exactly what that is. The track, I know that the high school had slowed down on that. And yeah, go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, the permanent conservation restriction. I've been trying to hear from town council. I'm assuming Chris has been trying to as well. The permanent restriction has not been prepared, so we can't release any money until it is. But I believe how, you said 50-some thousand for the swim center?
Oh, no, we've spent 55 this year.
Oh, this year, okay, so that's in addition to what's in there. 'Cause I
Yeah,
was
so
gonna
there's
say,
still, there's
I
still,
sent you a couple, good size, bills the other, what, 2 weeks ago now, maybe?
yeah, we just processed those, I think, last week, Russ. And so that project has a balance of just over 270 grand.
Okay,
If I could just piggyback on Don for just a second. So the town makes regular reports to the capital budget committee on projects that are funded that way. We're happy to do the same thing. I mean, I can hit and miss you on some of these right now because I know the status of some of them. For example, Parker Ave boat ramp, that's been delayed because of supply chain issues to the fall. We extended the contract. So that's planned for November. That was a supply chain issue. Some of the others, again, some of them I know and some I don't, but I think it'll be better. I'm happy to go back and say, okay, if the town is managing the project, let's get you all a report. Let's do something formal. Because again, we do that for capital, and I'm happy to do that for CPC. For the projects that we don't control, those are the private ones, it would probably make sense to give them some kind of a form and have them fill it out and report back.
Jenny?
Russ, it says here, I've been disabled from screen sharing. Host disabled participant screen sharing. Is that you?
I can promise you,
That's okay.
I'm not disabled, just screen share. Let me see. Well, you can't. Well, screen share.
It's okay. As long as you can hear me, that's fine.
No, screen share is what Don's doing right now, which is sharing your screen.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I just can't get the video to work, so
Yeah,
that's okay. Fine.
You
We-
need
we
to
know
get a
you're there.
5-year-old over there, Jenny. They'll figure it out.
You're right. Don't make me cry.
Chris, this is Marianne Weatherall. I would welcome if you could get some reports, just the statuses, either in the town or supply a document to the private organizations, just to get a status.
Sure. Let me. I'll circle back with staff this week and see. I mean, as this formats we use for capital, we might be able to do something similar. And if there's some kind of a format that I can find that's used regularly elsewhere, I'll share it with you folks. And if you want to adopt it and use it for private folks, that would be great.
You know, one thing that we do with capital is basically I will export this report to Excel, and I would talk to the departments to get just a brief update. Now, again, depending on what kind of level of update you're looking for, that could suffice. I'd be happy to work with whoever to come up with a more formal approach, but that's something that's been selfishly somewhat easy to just export and get updates and just do a small documentation of where we are and the expectation of the project. But yeah, like Chris said, I'd be happy to work with the staff and get updates on these. So I guess any other questions on the report itself, the other report, before we kind of get into where we are going into FY23 town meeting, or FY22 town meeting for FY23 budget?
And Don, sorry to beat a dead horse, but
Nope.
just to confirm, as we think about large projects like town hall, including what that price may look like, given, the market dynamics out there, are there any projects that you see on the list that, and the answer may be you don't know, but that you see not using the funds and that it's just not going to go forward? And so the available balance may actually be bigger in terms of money that was already appropriated, but maybe turned back?
Honestly, I assume that anytime a CPC project is approved, it's going to be spent.
I've not
they've
heard,
gone through-
I've
Go ahead,
not
Russ.
heard otherwise on any of the projects. Bear in mind, the last couple of years, projects of any sort have been tough between supply chain and COVID. For instance, some of the stuff in their town clock, we're still working with the clock people to see what is what with that one. The docks, the Parker Ave boat ramp, have all been extended until November. So Don and I go over these every year before a town meeting. And if there are any that are expiring, we get in touch with and see whether they're going to go ahead or want an extension, or they're not. We don't let these just hang out there.
Okay, so the answer right now sounds like no, you don't expect anything based on what you currently know today. And that's helpful to know as we think about the money and how it's all moving.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Excuse me. All right. Last document I'm going to share for the night. And this is the one I believe you guys all just got today. One sec. All right. So this is basically a shortened format of that long spreadsheet I was just showing you. So we have in the first section our FY22 allocations, our FY22 appropriations. And then in the second section, we get into the FY23 estimate. So based on the last 3 years, I've been doing it essentially a 3-year average of our CPA surcharge revenue, and then give it a 2.5% increase, because these are based on a percentage of our property tax commitments, which increased 2.5% per year. And then the state match was conservative. We did hit almost $50,000 this year, but to be conservative, I've estimated 200. Factoring in the 10% allocations to each historical, open space, and community housing, leaves about 488,000 left for the unreserved, totaling 2.3 million in total CPC funds available going into the May 2nd, 2022 town meeting. And so I can send this other report, which I have not provided, but I have almost a 10-year history on our revenues. And we've been consistently up to the $600,000 and $700,000 per year combined for the last, I think, 5 years at least. So I think these revenue numbers are pretty solid, conservative. Again, the surcharge is definitely on. That's a good number. Conservative for sure. And the state match is conservative based on what we just got. And we've been receiving a good increase year over year based on available funds at the state. Again, I didn't want to go right up to the same match we got this year, because who knows what they will actually provide next year. I wish I had a better view on what they would provide, but I think this is a good, reasonable estimate. And again, the actual revenues are what flow into the fund. So to me, the more conservative, the better. It just means that we collect more revenue than we're budgeting for. But yeah, so in total, I'm looking at about 2.3 million available for CPC related projects.
So Don, is the 2.3 million as of, for example, for the rest of the year until December, until we roll into the next cycle?
So right now we have available about 1.6. So this number here, the estimated fund balance as of June 30th, 2022, because CPC, you cannot prove any projects unless it's at an annual or special town meeting, right?
Yeah.
So we've already gone through, we've approved all the projects to date. So this 1.6 number is a good number right now. Going into FY23, into our May town meeting, we can also appropriate up to what we're estimating in revenue for the next year, including the set aside. So the law is that we have to set aside 10% of our annual revenue estimate or appropriate 10% per category. And so we go to town meeting to do the set asides, which are documented here, but we usually end up appropriating at least that amount of each bucket each year too. Some less than others, but so yeah, going into town meeting, this extra $751,000 is part of your overall available spending. I wouldn't recommend going and spending the whole 2 million by any means, but As I was mentioning before, we're consistently an annual revenue of $600,000 to $700,000. So that is, even if you did spend the whole 2.3 again, which I would advise not to do, you're still going to have an annual revenue stream of somewhere of $700,000 for ongoing CPC projects, or I should say future CPC projects. Yep.
And I don't want to hog the floor, but I do have one follow-up, which may make clear why I'm asking these questions. So, for example, if we wanted to put a $2 million down payment down on a loan for town hall, in theory, we could do that, assuming we don't, at the fall town meeting, assuming we don't spend over, 2.1 at, assuming we have that sufficient money left at the
So-
time. And I forget what the down payment was that CPC had previously allocated for that, for town hall, but I'm just trying to work that number out in my mind.
Yeah, so Gene, if I remember right, the initial down payment was going to be $1 million in cash, and then authorizing borrowing for the other 3 million, I think, or 2 million.
Okay.
That
So
was
again,
the
this is-
numbers I recall.
Okay, so again, this 2.3 million is available for as of this town meeting. If you did spend, you would need to have that amount, whatever you're looking for the down payment in fall, available after you appropriate your money at town meeting in May. So if you went and appropriated $2 million at this coming May town meeting, you'd only have 300,000 left. So you wouldn't be able to go to the fall town meeting for $1 million down payment.
Okay.
So if you're planning as a committee to push off a bigger project, something in the fall, you got to keep that in mind as you're going into this town meeting, appropriating from this available balance.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Well,
My signal's a little choppy. I hope you can hear me. That's the danger of being at home. So can I just follow up, Don? So there is one debt payment, I think, being currently made for open space. How does that
Right.
show on here? Does it?
That's going to be voted on tonight.
yeah, so Chris, that shows up in the unreserved. So the FY22, the almost 8 here of appropriations includes a $23,000 or $24,000 debt payment. And so as you're going through this year, as Russ just mentioned, you're going to vote for an FY23 debt payment of about $23,000. So that, instead of 2,200,332, now you're at 2.3 for an available balance. It just goes into your, comes off of your available balance every project that you start appropriating.
Don.
Yeah.
When we made the appropriation last time, was that 3 years ago now? We were estimating, I believe, about a bond payment of about $20,000 a year. Given the bond market and our grading, if you can give a rough idea, I understand the vagaries of the bond market and the interest rates, and I very much recall John Kenneth Galbraith saying when it comes to predicting interest rates, you have two types of people: those who don't know what the rates are going to do, and those who don't know that they don't know what the rates are going to do. So if everything was ready to go right now, and you can put in a fudge factor, what do you think the annual payment would be on a bond of, was it 3 million the last time?
So if we did $3 million, and now I'm conservative in nature, 4%. Now again, so I say 4%. I'll get into that in a second, but so 4% over 20 years, that's 220 grand a year for 20 years at a level debt service payment.
Okay.
If you say,
So then based on what I think is a very valid assumption that our income is going to be 700 a year, that's still going to leave us 4 and some change to continue to fund things with.
absolutely.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
This may be a stupid question. Is the state required to match? So if we had like a new governor, new legislature, could they just say, we don't want to match this year because let's say we're dealing with whatever we're dealing with?
Chris might have a better answer. I'm not quite sure, Gene.
I think the act requires, there's a permanent funding stream that comes out of the registries. So there's actually a tax at the registries that fuels the match. So I think that's actually in statute, and the tax is set. That said, the extra money the state throws in is purely optional, right? They do that from time to time. They don't have to do that, and they can always repeat. I mean, I think they have to repeal the tax, I think, in order to defund it. It comes out of, I believe it comes out of the registry, Gene. It was just increased, which is one of the reasons our match just went up, is because the registry tax went up.
I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Anyone with any other questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Don, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, hope you have a good evening.
You as well.
Thanks. Okay, moving on is, oh, there you are, Taffy. We have the Housing Authority in for two different requests. One for the roof of the community building and one for doors and windows that they need to get. We get to pay for it even though the state owns it. They get to tell us what we're going to do, but when it comes time to come up with some scratch, they're nowhere to be found. So Taffy, if you want to take it from there, please.
All right, thank you all. And first, I want to correct what you just said, Russ. The state does not own the housing, the project, the buildings. The Housing Authority owns the properties. The state DHCD is basically our funding source, aside from the rent that we get from the residents. But we control the properties. That wasn't clear to me for a while, but I found out when I said that in public, I got my head bitten off all of a sudden. So I'd like to start with the doors and window project because I realized that Mary Ann is new from last year. And so Mary Ann, the $200,000 that you saw on that list, perhaps it was up near the beginning, which was already allocated to community housing. We originally requested that $200,000 in 2018, and it was for potentially funding work on the new group home, which we have built behind the fire station. And we did not need to use that money. And so last year at the springtime meeting, that money, the community CPC voted to reallocate that $200,000 and push it forward into this project, which I'm presenting tonight, the doors and windows replacement project. So CPC has already funded that to the total of $200,000. So obviously that project has not gotten off the ground. It has just gone out to bid. But the estimate of the work project is $620,000, and the construction costs of $584. So we have, we're asking for another $100,000 to go towards that, because the state has a history of being very willing to support projects if the town can make, you know, some contribution, which is this is, and then they would meet that contribution in a variety of ways. But then, and if it goes over and they have to spend more money, they're willing to do it if the town, you know, has said, okay, we're behind this. That we had that experience back in 2008, and Ginny wrote this grant, which I know you have received, talking about that. At that time, we, the town CPC did a $400,000 grant towards a project, which ended up costing 1.2 million, and the state funded the balance about the 400,000. So I think it has a good history. the issue that we're looking at with this $100,000, the balance of the cost, $320,000, is right now scheduled to be taken from our what is called formula funding, which comes from DHCD, and also some of our operating reserve from the Cohasset Housing Authority. So, and it's based on a 3-year projection, so that if we have to spend that money, all that money, what I'm saying, I guess the turnaround is if the town were to be able to fund another $100,000, that would free up some money for us to do other capital projects that would not be able to be supported by CPC. For instance, in our 64 units, probably about half of the kitchens are still original 50-year-old kitchens, cabinets and countertops, and they very much need to be replaced, but it's hard to find the money to do that. So that's why we're looking to you to direct another $100,000 towards this project. It certainly fits within the preservation guidelines because, as described in the grant, the doors, which are above and below each other with a deck in between, have rotting in the frames, and there's a lot of leakage into the buildings. And it's a serious problem. It has to be fixed immediately, and will be one way or another. So, and it also has caused some damage internally, but CPC funds cannot be used for any kind of internal repairs, and those would be covered by the funds coming through DHCD. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about that. You're muted, Russ, if you're trying to say something. I don't know.
I don't have any questions regarding the request. I'd like to make a motion that we approve $100,000 for windows and doors at 60 Elm Street.
I second that.
Russ, you're muted.
Okay, sorry. Jean, how do you vote for it? We'll do a roll call.
Jean Haley Dipple Dye.
Mary Ann,
Aye. Mary Ann Weatherald, aye.
Eric,
Eric Eisenhower, aye.
Ginny,
Ginny, I.
Susie,
Susie Wadsworth, aye.
and Michael.
Michael Dickey, aye.
Russell Benetti, aye.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very
Oh.
much.
Thank you. The work you do with what you get is pretty phenomenal, Taffy. All right, now this
All
is
right.
for the roof. I'm sorry, for the doors and windows.
That was for doors and windows. Yep, 100,000.
Okay.
Russ, were you able to send out the revised grant
Estimate?
last night? The one I sent you yesterday, or did
Yeah,
you
I
send
sent
it
stuff
yesterday?
out last night.
Yeah.
Sent some stuff out. I didn't get home until 6 o'clock
Yeah,
tonight.
but then you sent that other
So
thing
the
out.
new estimate went out
Okay.
today. So I don't know if people had a reasonable chance to take a look at it or
Well,
not.
that's all right. Great. Thank you very much for that.
No, thank you.
So, yeah, so this project obviously is a lot bigger than we thought it was. But it seems like what we're asking for is very legitimate. The community building is a fairly large building. The roof area is 2,714 square feet. And it actually now is in 5 sections. And part of the design plan for replacing it is that it would no longer be in 5 sections. It would be continuous roof over the whole thing, and that should prevent leakage. as Ginny described in the grant, the community building is home base for our project. We have the offices for the director and for the her office assistant are there. That was just totally remodeled this winter with COVID funds because we had needed to have space where people would not be sitting right on top of each other when they met with the director. We have a fairly large community room that people can use. They can rent it to have parties. They can gather together to watch TV, to play games, play cards. We have dinners there. That room has been totally refurbished with funds from the Social Service League, that painted, new carpeting, new furniture. And then the Social Service League also funded a total new kitchen in that building during the COVID. They closed the building. We had to close the building down, and we figured this was a great time to do that. So they put in a beautiful new kitchen, which is available to all the residents. And then we also have the washers and dryers are there, bathrooms. And then we refurbished a garage because we were able to buy a shed from another project, the Kate's House project. We were able to buy a shed to store a lot of equipment like the snow blowers and the lawnmowers and things. And so they were able to use the garage, which they've converted to office space for our maintenance staff who were meeting in the basement. And the basement tends to flood. So it's really not a good place to have your equipment stored. So, so this building is really important. And we had a serious leak issue this winter, totally unexpected. And when it has been temporarily repaired. But when the state organization, RCAT, which I'll explain in a minute, they came out to look at it and they said, this repair is not going to do the job. The roof is in seriously bad condition. It's they rated it as fair to poor. That obviously there was some sheathing that needed to be replaced around where it was leaking, and the drainage system that apparently has a bellows system between the sections of the roof. They said it shouldn't have been done that way. So they just came last week and did the final full assessment of the project, and it came out at just over $50,000. And because of the way the state system works, projects under $10,000 are run out of the local housing authority. Projects between 10 and 50,000 are run out of this, it's called the Regional Capital Assistance Team. Ours is out of Taunton. There are 4 in the state. And then projects over 50,000 are run by DHCD. So keeping this project at 50,000 allows us to have it run by RCAT. And they really do a fabulous job. They will do the design. They will do the bidding process. It all has to go out through the state bidding process, of course. But they handle all of that, and it takes that out of our hands, and it doesn't dump it into the much larger DHCD system, which is what is dealing with the doors and windows. So that's why I wanted to send out the estimate, because our director, Colleen, said she almost fell off her chair when she saw the price. But they're saying that this is what roofing is costing, because the asphalt shingles are a petroleum-based product. And this is a larger area than I had originally anticipated it was going to be when we came to you. And the other issue is, this is really an emergency that has to be dealt with. And we have not set anything aside to do this project. And so if we can't get it done, it is a project that fits within CPC because it is allowing infiltration of water into the building. I think that we won't be able to do it in the foreseeable future.
Taffy.
Yeah.
In the past, we have added a buffer usually around 10%. And the way the article or the motion would read would be, in this case, 50,000 or up to 55,000,
Mhm.
or actual costs, whichever is less. So if it comes into 53, which the estimate is, you're covered, and we still have money left over in the account, which would get returned into the general fund. Is that going to cause you guys any kind of problems?
No, I don't think it is. Colleen asked about that. She said she already could take out the accounting fee, $500 at the bottom. And the designer costs, I think, will be less than 10,000. So it probably will come on under 50,000. But
Yeah.
Our representative to the RCAT said that no, we could ask for up to 55,000, and it would not kick it out of their jurisdiction because
Okay.
the construction costs are less than 50,000.
Okay. Jean?
I noticed within and thank you, Taffy, that was a helpful background of everything. I did notice within the cost estimate that they've already built in a construction contingency plus a market conditions and COVID-19 increase. So the actual subtotal is 26,000. But when they've added in profit bonds, and then I should add in really a $10,000 contingency already in there, which I would expect the state to do because, it's a construction project and adding contingencies. I wonder if we need to add a contingency on top of what the state has already added and accounted for. It seems like they've done a pretty good job accounting for a contingency situation, including due to COVID and supply chain issues.
Not necessarily, but it's not going to hurt on the same hand. Who knows what's going to be coming down the road as far as petroleum prices and everything else. My feeling personally is I'd rather still add that buffer. If they don't spend it, they're not going to get it.
That's right. I know Don well.
And it would potentially put them in a tight spot if for some reason they do go over that amount. That's my personal feeling on it, though.
Russ? Am I muted? No. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you, but I'm not Russ.
I can hear you.
Okay.
My computer is about to get shot.
I'd like to move things along, and I move that we approve up to $55,000 for new roofing at 60 Elm.
55 or actual costs, whichever is less.
Yeah.
I'd second.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions, though, before we take the motion? Mary Ann? Okay. Michael?
I will vote in favor.
I'm in
Okay.
favor.
All right. Well, let's do a roll call vote. Jean?
Jean Haley Dippledy.
Mary Ann?
Marion Weatherald, aye. In support.
Jenny?
Jenny Najmi, aye.
Eric?
Eric Eisenhower, aye.
Susie?
Susie Wadsworth, aye.
And Michael?
Mike Dickey, aye.
Okay. And Russell Benetti, aye. Thank you, Taffy.
Oh,
Thanks,
thank you
Taffy.
all. Thank you
Thank
all
you
very
all.
much. I appreciate that
Thank you.
extremely.
Well done.
Glad we can help. All right, the next item on the agenda is to vote a bond payment of $20,684. This is the next to last payment on this one. This was taken out long before I came on the board and long before Don got on board with the town. But it appears to be for some land that we purchased a restriction on. Because as you know, we don't buy land, we buy restrictions on land. And this is one of them. We have the annual payment, like I say, $20,684. Glad to discuss it, but your only options are either default or pay. So if anyone has a question, I'll be glad to take them. Jean?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Mary Ann?
I don't know.
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Susie?
No, I'm not sure what the motion should read to pay it.
That we pay the bond payment due of $20,684.
I second the motion then.
I don't think anyone made one yet.
Oh, I thought you did.
No, I can't make motions.
Russ, where was
Yeah.
this restriction purchased
When?
or where?
Where? Best that Don and I have been able to dig up is near the water tower and towards the Kettle Brook area of town. Kettle Brook runs right along 3A. It's mainly marsh, from what I've been able to see. But it was purchased probably close to 20 years ago when CPC first started in town. Like I say, long before my time. But we've been paying it every year for the last 18.
And this is the remaining number, the $20,684.
This is the next to last payment. So there's roughly 21,400 if my math teacher did his job right. So we'll be paying this one this year. We'll have one next year, and we'll be out of it. Which also, you know, we should keep in mind if we do get into a bond with the town hall, or when we do, we're going to have that rolling out. So the impact of the bond payment on town halls are not going to be quite as big. It's not huge savings, but somebody offered me 20 grand, I'd take it.
What is the bond payment then for next year? Is it the same amount?
Same amount, yeah.
So 40,000.
20,684 next year.
Oh, right. I'm just wondering.
Yeah. Yeah, so we owe, say 20,007 would be 41,004 left on the payment.
Is there any value in paying it all now?
Mhm.
That would be a good one for Don. I don't know what the rate is on it. It can't be lower than it is now. But at the same time, it's that much more or that much less money we're going to have to pay. But Mr. Senior.
Yeah, we
Right.
we're not able to prepay this at this point. So, yeah, this bond may have been refinanced at some point in the last 20 years that I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but we can't you can't prepay it at this point. So.
Okay.
Okay.
I hate balances.
If we can pay it off right now, I'd recommend you do that, but you can't.
Okay. Jenny, any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, Eric.
No, it's pretty straightforward.
All right, Michael.
I will vote aye.
Okay, well, I need a
We don't
motion.
have a motion.
Marianne, Weatherall makes
Okay.
a motion to pay off the bond payment of $20,684,000 for March 14th of this meeting.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Roll call vote. Jean,
Jean Haley Dippledy.
Mary Ann,
Aye. Marianne Weatherall, aye.
thank you. Susie Wadsworth,
Susie Wadsworth, aye.
Ginny,
Jenny Najmi, aye.
Eric,
Eric Eisenhower, aye.
Michael.
Michael Dickey, aye.
Okay. I don't know if we have any public out there that have a question. Do you see any, Chris?
Nope, there's nobody else in the audience.
Okay. Any member comments? Jean?
And maybe this is better put as an agenda item in the future, but one of the things I've been talking with Chris about is trying to formalize some of our processes, including, for example, getting grant agreements together just so we can have, clear documentation. And so, for those interested, that is something that we might ask other towns to see how they've been, handling things. So that way we can, for example, with the Affordable Housing Trust, like I raised at the last meeting, have that documentation in place, which is what many towns do. They have agreements to those, they grant money. So anyway, and nothing's happened. I've just been thinking about it. And like I said, happy to have it on as an agenda item in the future.
Sure. And actually, I'm glad you brought up the housing agreement. I was under the understanding, as was Chris, I believe, that had been taken care of. I think what we may want to do, and we can do that. I was thinking this over the weekend, and I'm very hesitant to use the 48-hour rule, even though this really kind of comes into that. I think at our next meeting, we should discuss and revote the housing, affordable housing grant to reflect that we need to have that agreement in hand. Even though the way that vote went, it's not going directly to them until they produce any kind of documentation. So I don't think it'd be a bad idea if we revote it and say that it's subject to us receiving that. It happens in a lot of transactions. When I was in the mortgage business, we did it all the time, and I don't see why we shouldn't be doing it now. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Mary Ann.
No comments.
Okay. Eric?
Nothing.
No. Susie?
No, I'd like to see as much documentation as possible on
Mhm.
everything that we consider.
Jenny?
No, I'm fine.
All right. Michael?
I'm good, Russ.
Okay. Now, who would like to make the most important motion of the night?
Oh, me.
Okay, Susie, you got it.
I
You got
move
it,
we
kiddo.
adjourn.
All right. Second?
I'll second Susie's motion.
All right. There better not be any nays, but Michael, we'll start with you, buddy.
I'll vote aye.
Okay, you're a good man. Jenny?
Jenny Najmi, aye.
Susie?
Susie Wadsworth, aye.
Eric?
Eric Eisner, aye.
All right. Mary Ann?
Mary Ann Weatherald, aye.
Great. Jean, sorry.
Jean Healy Dipple die.
All right. I'm going to vote for it too.